Pete Thamel of ESPN is reporting that Joey Aguilar's NIL deal with Tennessee is in the $1.2 million range. Now, that may seem like a lot, but Tennessee is actually saving roughly $1.2 million because reportedly Nico Iamaleava was making $2.4 million in that range. So with that in mind, Tennessee all of a sudden has $1.2 million worth of extra NIL funds to try to find talent. There is a spring portal window that closes on Friday, so it's very quick that they got to move and they got to try to target some guys, but they could target some people. And with that in mind, don't think for a second that they may not be able to add some players. Typically, less talented players are the ones who leave the spring portal window because they didn't want a starting job at the school they're at. That's different, though, when you have extra NIL funds and you can just bribe people and tamper to leave. So that's going to lead us to today's tough question. And today's tough question is brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win. Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. Why settle? Does the extra NIL funds that the Vols are getting with Joey Aguilar make them better than they would have been with Nico Iamaleava? And that's the poll question right now. And I'm setting it up right now for you guys. Do the extra NIL funds, or I'll say this, will the extra NIL funds with Joey Aguilar make the Vols better than they would have been with Nico? And we'll say yes, no, and then we'll say they were already better with Aguilar. Or how about this? Here we go. So here's the question. And the poll question's coming up now. Will the extra NIL funds with Joey Aguilar make the Vols better than they would have been with Nico? Yes, no, they're better just with Aguilar. They're better with Aguilar anyway. Go ahead and vote on that right now. Go ahead and vote on the poll question. It's up. Will the extra NIL funds with Joey Aguilar make the Vols better than they would have been with Nico? Yes, no, they're better with Aguilar anyway. I'm going to give my thoughts on this now. And to a quick correction for me, yes, the portal closes on Friday, but as GBO Kyle Beach says, you can still take players out of the portal Friday. That's correct. Thank you, Kyle. There's a lot of talented players Tennessee could go after in the portal for this. So the question again, will Tennessee's extra NIL funds with Joey Aguilar make the Vols better than they would have been with Nico? I'm going to say yes. Yesterday, we talked about whether or not Joey Aguilar is an upgrade for the Vols over Nico Iamaleava. I said he's a partial upgrade. He will be better for Tennessee than they were last year with Nico, but he will not be better for them than they would have been with Nico this year. However, that did not take into account the increased level of talent that they could get around Joey Aguilar now that they could not get around Nico Iamaleava because of $1.2 million. Guys, that's a lot of money for non-quarterbacks. Put it that way. That's a lot of money for non-quarterbacks. And so, according to CBS Sports and things I've been looking at, this is back in 2024. Now, it's totally changed now. But NIL deals for non-quarterbacks, things like running backs, or how about defensive linemen, typically range from $200,000 to $600,000. We're talking running backs $200,000 to $300,000, wide receivers $75,000 to $300,000. Offensive linemen, $350,000 to roughly, we would say maybe $600,000, $350,000 to $500,000. You guys see where I'm going with this here? You can get three other skill position, not just skill positions. You can get three other non-quarterback position players, elite non-quarterback position players with the extra $1.2 million in NIL funds. Yeah, you can get three others. I'm not kidding on this. This is a huge deal, guys. I think there's no way around it. Tennessee's going to be better. What if Tennessee I think Tennessee's wide receiver room is actually already better than it was this past year. I don't think the way everybody else thinks that they're going to go after a wide receiver. I think they're very happy with who they have and Mike Matthews, Braylon Staley. particularly potentially Boo Carter backing up Braylon Staley and Chris Brazzell. I think that's a great Matthews, Brazzell, and then Staley and Carter. I think where they're really going to look probably is on the offensive line. They still need more help. Right now, they seem to have just bodies, and they don't have any options if somebody gets hurt. I mean, they're relying on a freshman right tackle and David Sanders to fill that void. Obviously, on the left side, they have Lance Hurd, so they need more help at tackle. They certainly need more help on the interior because right now it's William Satterwhite and a couple other guys. But William Satterwhite, Wendell Moe, and Sam Pendleton, the two transfers. But if I were Tennessee, I would go for three key players. I'd go for another cornerback because of Jermon McCoy's injury. I would open up the checkbook for another cornerback. I'd spend $400,000 on a cornerback based on the NIL markets right now. If I'm Tennessee, how about this? How about I just go here? I'd spend $300,000 on a cornerback. Then I would go and spend $600,000. How about this? No, I'll spend $300,000 on a cornerback, and then that leaves me $900,000. I'd spend $500,000 on a defensive lineman and $400,000 on an offensive lineman. Defensive lineman market's a little bit more premium, so I'd spend $500 on a defensive lineman, $400 on an offensive lineman. I would go that route. I wouldn't focus on the skill players. I think they're better. I get people talking about the BYU wide receiver that's in the transfer portal right now. His name, I believe, is Keelan Marion, and he's 6 feet, 195 pounds. Tennessee has offered him. He is visiting Tennessee this weekend. I think the value that they see in him is as a kickoff returner as much as a receiver, and he is an All-American. I think this is one of those situations where you have your needs filled, but if a guy as good as Keelan Marion is in the portal, you go after him. So it's possible Tennessee – it's one of those things where, okay, you may have Clyde Drexler, but Michael Jordan's in the draft. You should take him. That might be Tennessee's thinking with Keelan Marion because he is that good. So we'll see how that works out. But with or without Marion, Tennessee's fine at wide receiver, I believe. I do think Marion would make them so dominant in the slot, though. Oh my gosh, Marion in the slot with them would be incredible. So unless they can get Marion, I would focus my money on the offensive and defensive lines and in the secondary. But giving Joey Aguilar another weapon at receiver would be a big benefit. So I think Tennessee going after Keelan Marion is a huge bonus. I just think personally they should go for a couple of linemen and another cornerback given Jermon McCoy's injury. So that's my thoughts. Again, in general, though, I definitely think that the extra NIL funds make them better with Joey Aguilar, not necessarily because of Joey Aguilar, but because they are going to have more help. The show represented by Banks & Jones. Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win. Why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. Please vote on the poll question. Will the extra NIL funds with Joey Aguilar make the Vols better than they would have been with Nico? Yes, no, they're better with Aguilar anyway. Quick message from Banks & Jones.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones.
Welcome back to Off the Hook Sports. The poll question: will the extra NIL funds make Joey Aguilar make the Vols better than they would have been with Nico? We have almost 40 people voting on that poll question now. 61% say yes, 26% say no. Interesting. And 13% say they were better with Aguilar anyway. So 13% of you say it doesn't matter because Joey Aguilar is better than Nico Iamaleava. That's about roughly 75% though saying in some way, shape, or form they're better now because of this situation, which means Tennessee upgraded with Joey Aguilar. As far as the top transfer portal targets right now, obviously Tennessee is not going after a quarterback anymore. But when you look at available targets, most of them have been swept up. If you go through like the top, I would say, I know the transfer portal is still open, but the top 50, only one player is still available. That player is Bernard Gooden, South Florida defensive lineman transfer. That's one you could target. I just said Tennessee needs a defensive lineman. If you want another receiver, Michael Hudson, that's a Texas A&M transfer. So that would be kind of intriguing to see if they could land him. We're going to have to see where other players go. I know the thoughts with the BYU receiver Keelan Marion, and I get that, but at the same time, there are a lot of other questions surrounding him. He is a 4-star. 6 feet, 195 pounds. But as far as everything goes, it doesn't look like he's one of the top 50 players on the 247 Sports transfer portal rankings that I'm looking at right now. So if it was me, I'm talking, and maybe I'll talk about this tomorrow, about players that they should go with. Bernard Gooden is the first one they should look at, the South Florida transfer defensive lineman. Micah Hudson is actually rated higher than Marion. He's a Texas A&M transfer wide receiver. I don't know if Tennessee's going to go after him. They can't, actually, because he's Texas A&M. So, and you can't go after SEC guys. Jeremiah Wilson, the Houston cornerback, another one that would be good. Emmanuel Carnley, the cornerback from Miami, is a top transfer portal guy. These are the most highly rated available ones that I'm going through. Akilo Stone from Ole Miss, transfer portal guy, defensive lineman. Trevor Pena, wide receiver from Syracuse, transfer portal guy. He's out and he's available. And then TJ Ferguson, interior offensive lineman from Florida State. Florida State coached a couple of Tennessee receivers. Wouldn't be bad for them to go after him. And then Bo Atkinson, an edge from North Carolina, is in the transfer portal. Hakeem Williams, another wide receiver. If I'm Tennessee, like my ranking on this, the guys I'm targeting first, yeah, I'm going all in on Bernard Gooden. I think Tennessee needs one more defensive lineman to have the rotation they had last year. And then I'm going in on, I'll go ahead and say Keelan Marion. I'm going in on, no, I'll take that back. I'm going to go in on Jeremiah Wilson next, the Houston cornerback. You need a cornerback and a defensive lineman. So I'm going in on both of them. And then, yeah, I'm going to go for the Florida State transfer that is on the offensive line. I just think that whatever you may think, Tennessee needs more bodies on the interior offensive lineman. I'm talking about TJ Ferguson. All are 4-star transfer portal guys. I would go for all of them. And so we will see what they do with all of that. But from my perspective, I think that Tennessee should go hard after those 3 guys. And then Keelan Marion would be my 4th guy. That would be my main one. And Kyle Beach says the wide receiver from Syracuse wanting $2 million. Yeah, ain't nobody picking up a $2 million wide receiver. So that's just how it is. Now, this is a different question. GBMFO has a great point. I'm not going to say what I'm pretty sure GBMFO stands for. I'm sorry, but I like your comment, GBMFO. It says play our young recruits. I hate our coaches won't play the kids. I kind of am starting to feel you on that, GBMFO. It does seem to feel like Josh Heupel, rather than put faith in the recruits he found, he just goes straight for the portal to offset losses. And it's like, does he not have any faith in his recruiting ability? We're going to talk about that. That's a conversation for another day, but that's a really intriguing one. So just keep tabs on that. You're not entirely wrong. And I wonder why that is, because he does seem to have a complete lack of faith in what he's doing. So we're gonna talk a little bit more about that later, because that is kind of interesting with the way you said that. So taking all that into account, I think the final take on this is that the extra NIL funds, again, for those of you who don't know, Joey Aguilar is making $1.2 million. That's $1.2 million less than what Nico Iamaleava was making. I do believe the extra NIL funds will make Tennessee better.